Howdy again, it's Mr. Pete, your interweb shop teacher, and this is part 2 of a multi-part video on how to make a quill stop for the Bridgeport mill. And this is my factory model, and here is my prototype that I made. The spring is not in there yet, it's not fully assembled. And here is the one that I made so far in part 1. I'm working on the hinge, which has both pins in place, and I have to produce a couple of clearances here and radii such that the jaws will open, because of course it's not going to open as pictured. I'll be back in a few minutes and I'll show you what I have done in order to get the hinge working. Okay, I think I've got it fitted properly so it will open wide enough, and that was all done with the radius right here, and I increased the clearance just a little bit here by another 10 thousandths and rounded that, and that gave me the clearances that I need for it to open. Now what's next? I want to drill these two 3/32 holes for the spring, and those are 600 thousandths from the end, so I'll lay those out right now. And the holes are 3/16 down from the sides, which is 187 thousandths. It didn't show up much, did it? So I will center punch there, and I'll drill them again 3/32, but off camera, and I think I'll use the drill press rather than the milling machine. That's an easy one. Alright, they've been center punched, and those holes will be drilled all the way through. Looking good. Got some burrs to remove there, and then next I will lay out and then drill an 1/8 inch hole right here. The only purpose of that is for assembly of the spring, but it could be plugged later on, but I don't see the need for it. That's the center line. Boy, that doesn't show up. And it's, again, 600 thousandths in from where my finger is. I will center punch that and drill 1/8 inch, but only in one piece. Not on the other side, just one side, although it wouldn't hurt. I have a correction over what I just told you about the depth of this 1/8 inch hole. I started it already, but it has to go all the way through the first piece and almost all the way through the second piece, or if you did run it all the way through, I don't suppose it would make much difference, and you'll see why in a little while, but in the finished one here you can see just a little bit of a peck mark. If that's too troublesome for you, go all the way through. The next thing I'm going to do is kind of tricky, so listen carefully, and you have to use a 3/8 end mill 2 flute, not 4 flute. See the difference? You cannot plunge cut. This is going to be a plunge cut. Actually, I'm drilling with an end mill, and the 4 fluter does not cut right in the center. This will cut almost to the dead center, but not really, and that was and is the purpose of the 1/8 inch hole, as well as to pull the spring into place for assembly purposes. So, three-eighths, like that, and the location is, what was it here? 600 thousandths, I forgot. The distance in, and in the middle, 375. I better give you that dimension again. Yes, 600 thousandths in from the end, and 375 from the side. So I'll go over to the mill. I'm not going to show you the layout on the mill. I will show you the plunge cut, and those we do not go all the way through. Leave about a 1/16 of an inch. I'm about ready to mill. Notice that I'm using a quill stop, and I've already set that, and I am ready to plunge cut with the 3/8 end mill. Okay, very successful to this point, and these sure do come in handy. I just used this for that plunge cut so that I didn't go all the way through. Now, what are the purposes of all of these holes and crisscross? And, you know, it is kind of confusing probably for you, but the whole idea here is we need clearance for the thickness of the wire so that it'll go all the way in there and we can get the pin in place. Let's see if it works. See if we got the correct clearance. And I do. You see it can't pull out. And I'll check the other one too off camera, but I'm sure it's okay. I don't ever make mistakes. All right, let's talk about springs. This is my lifetime collection of springs, at least some of them. And then I had a whole kit here of extension springs because we do not want compression springs. We got to have compression, or we got to have extension springs. And I couldn't find what I wanted in here, and I searched and searched. It took an hour, and I pulled out a bunch that are about the right diameter and the right length and the right wire size. And initially I used, well, one of these springs, and it was too weak. Just didn't have the closing power that I needed. So believe it or not, there were about 2 or 3 or 4 of these, and these are just right. I was lucky I didn't have to go to Ace Hardware, but I doubt very much if any of those stores are going to have what you need. But you should know that the wire diameter, the gauge, is about 52 thousandths. So that's the spring that I will be using when I make the final assembly. The rest of these go back into stock. You know, when I bought these years ago, some of these were a selection, and I'm pretty sure that they just sweep the floor at the spring factory and throw them in a box and sell them for whatever they can get. The height gauge is set for 250 thousandths. I'm laying out, and I'm going to drill and tap the holes for the little knobs. And I already put a center line on there, probably in part 1. Boy, I got so many lines there you can't see, but that's where I'm going to drill and tap, right there. And I'll mark that on both of them. Well, that's better. I think you can see the center punch marks, and this is an 832 thread, so I will drill plenty deep, so I do not have to deal with a bottoming tap. So I'll go in about 3/8 of an inch, and then I'll tap it, and I'll do all of that routine work off camera. See you in a few minutes. The work is set up and ready to drill, and I changed my mind. I'm going to drill all the way through, and you'll see that in a minute why I'm doing that, so I don't have to deal with a blind hole. So here we go. And now I will power tap 832, and I've already got a little bit of oil on the tap. Back gear, slow speed. One down and one to go. Okay, both pieces are drilled and tapped for the little knobs or handles. Now I've got a tap sticking through there just to show you what I was talking about in terms of drilling all the way through rather than a blind hole. Just makes it easier, less chance of breaking a tap, and you do not need to use a series of taps to make sure that you're deep enough to accommodate your thread. Well, the holes are drilled and tapped, and the little knobs fit in there nicely. So next I'm ready to lay out and drill and tap this hole, and I'll mark the length here too. So it's 1.5 inches, and the distance between this end and the center of the hole is 1 1/8. So let me lay those out real quickly. Okay, 1.5 inches, the overall length, and 1 1/8 inch for the center of the threaded hole. I think I'll lay out the angle. So this is waste stock up here, above that line. Let me lay out the angles now, which are 30 degrees, or was it 60? I almost forgot one layout line here. So the distance from the bottom here up to this corner here where the angle starts is 800 thousandths. So I've set the height gauge for that, and I had to put a little bit more dye on there and wait for it to dry. So let me mark that and that like that, and now I'm going to use the protractor and put the angle on. Once again, this is waste stock which will be cut off, thrown away, and my angle will start right there, and I've got the protractor set for 30 degrees. I don't even really need to do this because I'll be using an angle block when I actually mill it, but there's the line. And here is the layout line for the other side. Once I get this set up in the milling machine vise, I will be drilling and tapping this hole. Again, that is the point there, and I'm going to lay this out with the digital readout when I get to the milling machine, and I will use a pilot hole of about 1/4 inch, and then 29/64 is the tap drill size for the 1/2 20 Unified National Fine plug tap, which I will power tap. So let's step over to the J head. Okay, I'm just about ready to drill and tap the hole. It's been located, so let's drill. But Mr. Pete, you're going to drill into the parallels, you fool. Oh, you're right, thanks. I better straddle it, like that. Okay, let's center drill. And now 1/4 inch pilot drill all the way through. And now 29/64 all the way through. And the nice countersink to help the tap get started. And lastly, tap 1/2 20. Looks pretty good. I'll go over to the drill press and use the countersink on the other side. Off camera, of course, and see you at the bench. I know that earlier I said that I was not going to use roll pins, spring pins, tension pins. I was just going to use the steel rod, but I changed my mind since I've been able to find 8 of those here. So I'll just a little bit of oil on there. And the other one as well. And you can see the other pins fell right through the bottom of the bench plate. I was tormented by those doggone things sticking up when I tried to hold it in the vise, so I put in the permanent pins. Wow, that made it a lot tighter. I hope that works all right. It's quite stiff now. I know I'm going to get criticism, so I think I'll try to check it right now. When you can see that these 2 pins are not in alignment, it's like I misdrilled, but I wanted this hinge pin to be a little bit off board so that it would open freer. I don't know if that helped or not, but that was just one improvement that I made since the prototype. And now to the bandsaw, and I will cut it off right here, leaving just a little bit to machine. Again, this is all waste. And then finally, I'll cut the angles, and I'll do that rather than bandsawing. I think I'll just go straight to the milling machine. I did rough cut the prototype on the bandsaw. It probably was a waste of time. And finally, I'm ready to mill the angles off, and there's all kinds of different ways of positioning that, but I like to use the 30-degree angle block. If you do not have one of these, everyone has one of these, and that would work also to lay into the vise. You may or may not need a parallel under that. So if I just put the block in, I know you can't see that, and again, it takes a couple hands here. And I don't want it that far above, so I'll slide it down the angle block to right about there and tighten the vise, and I'm ready to mill. And then I'll do the same thing on the second side, and I won't show that half. Okay, it's just about finished. I broke all of the corners with a file. And now I was talking about tormenting. I had to take that roll pin out again because I need that space for assembly. So back with a regular pin there so I can take it apart, and let's install the spring. Now there's probably only one way of doing this, so watch carefully. Alright, one end of the spring goes into this hole, and that's the one without the exterior 1/8 inch hole. And at least temporarily I'm going to go ahead and put the 3/32 pin in there. And you can see that fastens it in pretty well. I believe that I will put the roll pin in there permanently right now. Now here's the game plan. I put a piece of stout twine in there from a shoemaker, just a little loop, and that's my fish tape, and I will grab the spring and assemble it and pull that through, and I got to pull it real tight and then put a pin in there. So see if I can do this without fumbling too badly. Well, I had to replace the string. That one was too short. It kept slipping out of my hands, so I'm pulling the spring now. Can you see that or not? And I want to bring it up as far as I can and slide that pin into place. That again is still a temporary pin. And then let's see if I can get this string out of there, because it's probably caught under the pin. No, it pulled out. And boy, is that tight. Feels good. That's a strong spring. You need it strong. Alright, I still need to replace this pin here and this one. That's permanent. So let me do that. Well, there it is. Inspiration, prototype, and the finished product. What do you think? Took 2 or 3 days to make this video, and I think that it's probably an 8-hour job, including this. If you've done one, you can do the second one, much faster. That's why I do it. It helps me with the filming as well. All right, let's go over and see if this works. We know it will. Now, this is 1/2 20 thread. If you have an import or one that reads in millimeters, you probably have a metric screw on it, and you would have to make one of these with a metric thread. So match up your thread on your machine with a tap that will allow it to fit on the machine. Kind of tricky, but you can do it. I challenge you. I was going to plug this hole with some aluminum, but this is slightly under 1/8 inch, so it's not going to press in there. I need to look around for a little piece that'll fit, although the job is done. Why am I wasting my time with that? Over at the Bridgeport, I think I'll use a little Loctite on these knobs. I haven't done that yet, but let's see if it works here on the Bridgeport. Of course it works. What is there to not work? Alright, if you enjoyed this video, please give me a thumbs up and like, subscribe, all of that stuff. This is Mr. Pete saying so long for now. Hope you enjoyed this video and watch some of my other videos. I have 1,400 of them, you know. So long for now.